On to the next one. Trump signs executive order restricting mail-in voting. Ooh, heard about this. He's still pushing really hard for voter ID. I think there was something else about that. Why are there so many people opposed to voter ID? Is there something else in the bill that they're trying to pass? I remember hearing somewhere that there was a discussion, and it was like it wasn't the voter ID element of the bill that was concerning to them, and it was something else that they were trying to like lump in with it and then pass through that was concerning to them. Okay, let's have a look. Let me finish this one first. Executive order restricting mail-in voting. Trump issued an executive order limiting voting practices, citing fraud concerns despite lack of supporting evidence as part of broader election-related action. This move could alter voting access and procedures ahead of future elections, sparking debates over election integrity and voter participation. Why is he targeting mail-in voting? Like, don't the Republicans get a lot of votes through mail-in voting as is it primarily Democratic? Okay, I'll ask that after I read this. The debate over voter ID often feels confusing because in most polls, a majority of people say they support the concept of showing identification to vote. Yes, like I'm part of the majority. I support showing identification to vote. However, the current tensions specifically surrounding the SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, being debated in the US Senate this month, is less about ID itself and more about the specific fine print in the bill. Something else you likely hear about isn't just about showing a driver's license at a polling station. It's about a massive shift in how people register to vote in the first place. Critics argue that this bill goes far beyond a simple show your ID rule. Here are the specific parts causing the most friction. Proof of citizenship versus photo ID. The bill requires documented proof of citizenship, like a passport or a birth certificate, just to register to vote. Currently, most states allow you to register by swearing an oath of citizenship under penalty of perjury. Opponents point out that roughly 21 million Americans do not have easy access to a birth certificate or passport, even if they have a standard driver's license. Ooh. So the SAVE Act specifically requires you to show proof of citizenship, passport or birth certificate, to register to vote. And they expect 21 million Americans who are citizens not have easy access to birth certificates or passport. I have both for Canada. But needing to provide them, what it would do is it would disenfranchise 21 million Americans. So Trump is supporting this because the 21 million Americans vote more Democratic than Republican. I'm assuming that's the only thing that makes sense why you'd want to not have these people vote. And that's just hard. Like, if you have a driver's license, can't you look in your system and see, okay, this person is a citizen? Why do you specifically need a passport or birth certificate? A lot of people don't ever get a passport. A birth certificate is just a piece of paper you can use that easily. What I understand, getting a new one is a pain. Okay, let's continue. The DHS. I'm interested in this, right? Because Canada, specifically the Alberta referendum, it has a question about um, photo ID. So, do they want a driver's license? Or in their question, do they want a passport or birth certificate? Because these are two very different levels. Okay, the DHS data sharing clause. One of the most controversial hidden parts of the bill requires states to hand over their entire voter registration list to the Department of Homeland Security every quarter. Supporters say this is to purge non citizens. Opponents call it a massive privacy violation and a move towards a federalized surveillance of voters. Purge non-citizens. So by data sharing, the Department of Homeland Security will have the ability to purge non-citizens. Like, the thing is, I really don't care about like the surveillance. If anything, like there needs to be more surveillance, I'd say. Like I've looked up some stuff about China and how they have like essentially a score for their citizens. It's basically like a large surveillance state. They move more and more there. Like 8 of the top 10 cities for having the most cameras are all Chinese. But like that is a power to like to give that to the Department of Homeland Security, which is isn't that a federal entity under the government? It's like giving the voter rolls or the ability to remove voters from being able to vote to the government that has an incentive to remove certain people from the voter rolls. Department of Homeland Security. Is the Department of Homeland Security an independent from the government, or do they take marching orders from the federal government? Let's see. It is a core part of the executive branch of the U.S. federal government. Okay, so it's just straight up core part. So yeah, it would be handing the ability to remove people from the voter rolls to the government, which is incentivized to remove specific people from the voter roll. That's dangerous. follows the president's policy agenda. There are legal and structural guardrails designed to prevent it from being a purely political tool. Well, we know how Trump treats structural guardrails. Like, again, though, the whole voter ID, I largely support. There's these things hidden in there that are also part of the SAVE Act that are concerning for a democracy. The end of online/mail registration. I personally like mail-in voting. I would like online voting next. Let's make it easier. Why do I need to deal with paper? Surely I can prove who I am on an app. Vote there. Like that's what would make things easier for me. They appear to be going the other way. Because the bill mandates that citizen documents be presented in person. It would effectively shut down online and mail-in registration systems used by over 40 states. It would also end third-party voter registration drives, those at churches or campuses, because those groups cannot legally handle your original birth certificate. Like, I'm all for checking if people are citizens when they vote, like running having a voter ID and running their ID through database to ensure citizenship. All these extra things are voter suppression, in my opinion. All of this sounds like voter suppression. I generally lean the other way. We should be making things easier for people. Criminal liability for election workers. The bill introduces harsh criminal penalties, including up to 5 years in prison for election officials who register someone who doesn't have the exact, oh my goodness, exact paperwork required, even if a simple clerical error or the person is a legitimate citizen. Like, that's introducing a whole new level of consequence for what is usually a pretty low skill, easy job. And now, if you make one little error, make a clerical error, you go to prison for 5 years. Okay. I mean, like I would personally get a different job. I'm not going to prison for 5 years because someone handed me an illegitimate document. Why the opposition is so vocal? While supporters argue these measures are the only way to ensure only citizens vote, isn't non-citizen voting like an incredibly tiny problem? Despite non-citizen vote already being illegal and extremely rare. Okay, I just didn't read the next sentence. Opponents focus on the administrative hurdle factor. So it's already extremely rare, but because the general populace agrees that there should be some kind of identification while voting, they're trying to push through what looks to me like voter suppression with the ID. Because, like, showing an ID while voting, if you just got to show your driver's license, who cares? Right? Why is the opposite? Administrative hurdle factor. Married women, an estimated 69 million American women have a current legal name that does not match their birth certificate due to marriage. Under the new rules, they might need to produce a marriage license alongside their birth certificate just to register. Oh, So they're even, so it's like, oh, let's even target the women. Like 69 million American women, will just remove them from being able to vote subtly by giving them extra hurdles. The more I read about this, the more horrible it is now. These groups are the least likely to have, okay, students and seniors, these groups are the least likely to have passports or current birth certificates on hand, potentially pricing them out of voter due to the fees and time required in order to order new documents. Oh, Canadian context. And following the news closer to home, Canada also introduced the Strong and Free Election Act in March 2026. However, that bill is quite different. It focuses on banning AI deepfakes of politicians and tightening rules on funding rather than changing requirements, which are already standard for Canadian federal elections. I think I did have to give over, or at least show my ID when I voted last. It's not something I think of, but I think it was just like my health card and my driver's license both act as an ID. I always carry them with me. Not a problem for me. In short, most of the noise right now is because the current US bill isn't just asking for a driver's license, it's asking for a passport, a trip to a government office, and a new federal database to track it all. This is what? What's this called? The Save Act? Save Act. Okay. Does it look like the Save Act is going to pass in Congress? How do I say it? Something else I wanted to ask. I want to know why he's targeting mail-in vote. As of mid-April 2026, the Save America Act, the updated version of the original Save Act, faces an extreme uphill battle in the Senate and is unlikely to pass in its current form. While the bill passed the House in February 2026 with near total Republican support, it has hit a significant roadblock in the Senate. Here's the current state of play. The Senate math problem. The 60 vote hurdle. Republicans currently hold 53 seats in the Senate. To overcome a filibuster, okay, I have no idea what that is, and move the bill to a final vote, they need 60. How many? The Senate's like 100, right? So they require a supermajority to pass this? Democratic opposition. Senate Democrats remain unified against the bill, calling it anti-voter and a poll tax in disguise. Without at least 7 Democrat defectors, the bill cannot advance. So it doesn't look like it's going to pass. The presidential factor. Let's see. President Donald Trump has declared the SAVE Act his #1 legislative priority and has been aggressively lobbying Senate Republicans to bypass the filibuster. The nuclear option to pass it. Wait. So you have a filibuster, which means you need 60 votes, but you can just go around the filibuster? Why, if you can go around it, why would you not go around? Clearly, I'm missing some part of American politics and democracy here. However, Senate leadership has repeatedly stated they do not have the 50 votes necessary to change the filibuster rules. Oh, okay. So you need a certain number of votes to get rid of the filibuster, but you can't get that because that's like core aspect of the democracy. you need to be able to get 60 votes in order to get this passed, which means you need some people from the other side. And they're all against it. Trump has recently hinted at using executive action or new legal arguments to implement parts of the act, specifically the voter ID and citizenship verification portion, if Congress fails to act. Could he do that? As like as you get close to the midterms, could he use an executive order to just force this through? And then like even if it gets shut down, it'll take time for that to happen. Could enforce it for the voting period of the midterm. Even if it gets shut down afterwards, like you'd get the effect you wanted, right? I wonder if we'll see that. If the bill fails this week, you will likely see the focus shift to the state level. Ooh, kind of like what he did with redistricting, right? Several states have already begun drafting their own version of the SAVE Act to implement documentary proof citizenships for state level elections. Though these will inevitably face immediately challenges in federal court. Short, it is a high profile performative fight. The bill is expected to fail in the Senate, but the debate will likely be the centerpiece of the 2026 election cycle. Interesting. So he's really pushing it. Again, like I agree with showing ID. Canada already has that from what I understand. But he's not talking about showing ID. He's talking about a trip to a government office so that you can sign up to vote with a passport or birth certificate. Sometimes, like if you're a married woman, you might even need a marriage certificate in order to sign up to vote. And you can't do it online or by mail. That's a lot. It's a lot of hurdles to ask someone to jump through. He clearly thinks it'll favor his party though. He's pushing it so hard. Let's. Ooh, I want to talk about. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Mail-in voting. There was something else that came up that I wanted to ask. No, not coming to me. Why is Trump so focused on mail-in voting? Don't the Republicans get a lot of votes by mail as well? Okay, you're spot on. It's a major point of debate within the party itself because Republicans do, in fact, rely heavily on mail-in voting. The focus on cutting back mail-in voting is a bit of a strategic tug-of-war between Trump's personal rhetoric and the reality of how his supporters actually vote. The Republicans' reliance on mail. It is a common misconception that only Democrats vote by mail. In the 2024 election, approximately 24% of Republicans, nearly 1 in 4, cast their ballot by mail. In some specific states, these numbers are even higher. Okay, we're not going to go through the specific ones. Why the focus on slashing it? If it helps them, why attack it? Trump's focus generally stems from three specific arguments. The chain of custody argument. Trump argues that once a ballot leaves a government office and enters the postal system, it is lost to supervision. He frequently cites ballot harvesting, where third parties collect and drop off ballots, as a primary security risk. even in states where it is legal. Chain of custody. So when you drop a ballot off a mailbox or have someone collect it to drop off at a, he's worried it's like switched out for a different ballot voting a different way, so it's not accurately recording the person's will. Like, is there a problem with that? From what I understand, it's very rare for someone to like try and change ballots. Like the most likely thing you'll have is someone that'll pick up ballots and then not send them. I don't know about that. Like, is there a problem there? Have we looked into it? Let's continue with what his issues are. The election night effect. Mail-in ballots often take longer to count, which leads to what's known as the blue shift, where Republicans might appear to be winning on election night only to see that lead vanish as mail-in ballots, which currently skew Democratic, are tallied during days. That's why. There. So even though 1 in 4 Republicans vote by mail, more Democrats vote by mail. Therefore, affect more Democrats by making it harder for them to vote by mail. I think I personally lean like we should have like internet voting. You can verify your identity in order to get into your bank account. Why can you not do this in order to vote? Technology's there to keep this secure. But when mail in voting favors one side, the other side's going to target it. Trumpers argues this create uncertainty, chaos. Guess what? If you let them vote online, count it instantly. Instantly. Like, you don't have to have anyone opening anything. Just count it instantly. Mobilization gap. Historically, Democrats have been more successful at using mail in voting to lock in votes weeks before the election. Trump's team often feels that the longer the voting period, the more time the opposition has to turn out low propensity voters. The backfire concern. Many GOP strategists are currently worried that the Save American Act push to limit mail-in voting to only those with an excuse. Illness or military service could accidentally suppress their own turnout, but he's hoping it suppresses their turnout more. If mail-in voting is banned for everyone, GOP have to successfully move millions of their own mail-only seniors, rural voters back to physical poll lines on a single Tuesday. A massive logistical risk. Short, Trump is focusing on it because he views it as a source of fraud, a tactical disadvantage. Many in his party are quietly terrified that if he actually succeeds in banning it, he might end up cutting off a huge chunk of his own base. The chain of custody argument. Is there any evidence suggesting that this is an actual problem? let's see, like, surely if he's coming out against this heavily, they've done research on it. The chain of custody argument is a central part of the current 2026 election debate, but there is a significant gap between the political claims and the empirical evidence. Here's the breakdown of the evidence versus the rhetoric as of April 2026. The claims. What is the problem? Critics, including the current Trump administration, argue that mail-in voting is inherently insecure because of the black box of transit, ballot harvesting, the dead letter risk. I'm not going to do that too much. I just want to know response, the evidence. What does the data show? Leading nonpartisan research institutions have consistently found that while mail-in voting technically has more touch points than in-person voting, systemic fraud is almost non-existent. The numbers: in the 2024 election, nearly 1/3 of voters used mail-in ballots. Documented cases of fraud remain in the low double digits nationwide. Low double digit. So a third, approximately 48 million. And cases of fraud are in low double digits. Like, that's a rounding error. That's someone making a mistake on their ballot. And then it being seen as fraud because they spelt their name wrong. And they spelt it the same as someone else's name. Statistically insignificant in the context of millions of voters. Security safeguards. Most states use invisible security measures that mitigate chain of custody risks, such as. Okay, well, is there a summary? In short, there is plenty of evidence that the process of mail-in voting is different and involves more steps, but there is no credible evidence suggesting that these steps are being successfully exploited to steal elections. Most experts argue the chain of custody problem is more about voter perception and trust than actual criminal activity. Like, I personally think you should be able to vote in mail. I personally think you should be able to vote online. That we should be trying to set that up. But I mean, that's my take on it.